Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I'm Melissa. I am a registered dietitian, and here on my channel we talk about all things food and nutrition. So if that is what you're into, then you are in the right place. Today we are doing part 2 of my intuitive eating series. If you did not catch my first video in the series, I will link it wherever it is you link things. Part 1 was pretty much explaining what intuitive eating is, the principles of intuitive eating, and today we are going to talk about how you can become a more intuitive eater. So I'm going to talk about 5 ways in which you can kind of move towards becoming an intuitive eater. So number 1 is listening to your hunger cues. Now this sounds easy, this sounds, like common sense, but if you think about it, a lot of us ignore our hunger cues a lot of the times. You get halfway through the morning and you are hungry and you just ignore it because you're going to eat lunch in like 2 hours. So why have a snack? And that might seem harmless, and sometimes it is, but when you start ignoring those hunger cues is when things start to not work so great in your body. So, the more you ignore hunger cues, the less your body is going to give them to you because it thinks that you're just not listening to them. So listening to those hunger cues is an important step in being intuitive about what and when you are eating, because those hunger cues mean something. They mean your body's hungry. They mean your body wants food. So you should feed it. I think ignoring hunger cues also comes along with chronic dieting as well. When you are dieting, you're told to only have a certain amount of calories in your day. And so you try to ignore your hunger as much as you can so you can get as little calories as you can. And I think at a certain point in doing diet after diet, you kind of become used to being hungry and you stop honoring those hunger cues. As with every video, my dogs have started playing as soon as I turn the camera on. So as with every other video, if you hear strange noises, it's them. I wish I could show you a video of them. They're on the couch right there, just both playing. So number 2 kind of goes along with number 1, and that's listen to your fullness cues, which again might sound like common sense, but if you think about it and you are actually honest with yourself about when you do honor your fullness cues, a lot of us normally don't. And a lot of times it can mean overeating. You're eating a really good meal, and even though you're full, you just keep eating. And a lot of us think that in order to be quote unquote full, you need to be stuffed and feel sick and go into a food coma and all those things. So actually listening to your fullness cues of when your body is satisfied is really important, and actually might be a bigger step than you think. And definitely the first part of that is realizing why you are overeating. Is it because of, like I said, you've just kind of always felt that in order to be satisfied, you need to be stuffed? Is it because, you're at this restaurant that you've been wanting to go to for a long time and your meal is just too big, but it's just really good, so you just keep eating? Is it because there's cookies at work and you never get to have cookies, so you eat as many as you can while they're there because you don't know when the next time you're gonna have them is? Figuring out why you are, eating past your fullness point is a huge step to actually honoring those fullness cues. And the reality is a lot of us are eating subconsciously or not because we're not sure when we are going to get to eat that thing again. And realizing that I can just eat till I'm satisfied and take the rest of this meal home and have it later. Or, yes, I'm eating lunch now, but I don't need to overstuff myself because I can have a snack later if I feel hungry. Or, yes, there's cookies here now, but you know what? People bring in cookies, once every other week or whatever it is. So I can have them, or if I really want cookies, I can make them. Realizing that, we live in a world where you can eat whenever you want to, and you can pretty much eat whatever you want to. So eating past your fullness point because you are not sure when you're gonna eat again doesn't really make sense when you talk through it with yourself. Like I said, a lot of us are doing this subconsciously, so I'm not by any means telling you that you don't make sense. But when you think about it in your head, realize, oh, this is why I'm doing that. And working through that can help you make step towards honoring those fullness cues. Number 3 is start incorporating fear foods. And if you don't know, fear foods are basically just any foods that you are afraid to eat. So a lot of times when that is someone who is always on a diet, that is things with sugar in them or things with high fat content, carbs, whatever it is that really kind of scares you. Part of intuitive eating is realizing that there are no foods that are off limits. And part of diet mentality and diet culture is telling you that there are foods that are off limits and there are foods that are bad versus foods that are good. And part of overcoming that mentality that a lot of us are used to is incorporating foods that are quote unquote bad, at least in our minds. So start by just incorporating them every once in a while. Even if that just means adding those things in small servings once a week. Really whatever you feel like you can start doing to help you towards not being afraid of those foods anymore. Because the reality is once you eat those foods and you realize you can just eat them every once in a while and nothing bad happens, that is when you are moving towards intuitive eating and not being afraid of any of those foods. Number 4 is find pleasure in eating again. This is definitely easier said than done, especially when you are used to, dieting chronically or have some disordered eating habits. A lot of people have really developed an unhealthy relationship with food, and food is now associated with guilt and shame and sadness and, whatever you associate food with. Very few people associate food with joy these days. I hear people all the time say like, oh, I wish I just didn't have to eat. And that makes me really sad because food is so joyful, and sharing food with people and cooking for people and, having food that you like and that satisfies you and finding that joy from food again is so important for everyone, but especially if you are trying to make steps towards becoming a more intuitive eater. So, this step, like I said, is easier said than done, and it works differently for different people. Maybe start by going on Pinterest or wherever it is that you find your recipes and find some recipes that look really good to you and try some new recipes. Find those foods that you actually enjoy eating and that you don't feel like you just have to eat because that's what your diet says. Or maybe that means going out for a meal with your friends, or maybe that means cooking for your significant other. Whatever piece of food brings you joy, try to do that more often and work your way out of those negative connotations that come with food and back into the joy and positivity of food. And finally, the last one, number 5, kind of goes with number 4, and that is finding another way to cope with your emotions. And I honestly think I could probably make a whole video out of this step. So comment below or give this video a thumbs up if you would like to see this. But just like the hunger and fullness cues, it might be subconscious, but a lot of us use food as a way of coping with our emotions, whether that be sadness, disappointment, anxiety, anger, all these emotions that we may not have another way to cope with them. So instead you use food to do that. So, you always hear people joking about eating their feelings or sitting on the couch and eating a pint of ice cream because they're sad, and all of those types of things that have kind of become pretty normal in our society these days. And when you are using food to cope with those emotions, you are not actually coping with the emotions. I mean, think about it. If you are really sad or really stressed, is eating a pint of ice cream really making you feel better? Maybe for the 5 or 10 minutes that you're eating it, but afterwards you're still gonna be sad and stressed and you're not doing anything with that emotion. So it's really important to find other ways of coping with those emotions that you normally use food to deal with. So whether that is going for a walk or taking a bath or meditating or seeing a therapist to talk through those emotions, really whatever works for you. And it is going to take some experimentation of figuring out what works for you, but finding different ways to cope with your emotions that don't involve food is a huge step towards becoming an intuitive eater. So those are 5 things that you can kind of start to work on in order to make steps towards becoming an intuitive eater. And I know it's easier said than done, and I know it takes time. So be patient with yourself and allow yourself time to make small steps in the right direction. Like I said, a lot of these steps I kind of feel like I could make a whole video about. So please let me know if you would like this, if you would like me to kind of continue the intuitive eating series. It's something I'm definitely really passionate about, so I'd love to make more videos about it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and please subscribe if you have not already. And thank you for watching. I will see you next week.